This is NASCAR Coast to Coast. 60 minutes of NASCAR local and regional racing talk, interviews, and opinions. Here's Kyle, Rickey, and Buddy Long.
Bassett finally breaks through in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East, while a familiar face races to victory lane in the West. It was an emotional night at the Thompson Speedway, and one dirt track ace goes to the top of the national standings. Welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast for Tuesday, August 18th. Kyle, Rickey, and Buddy Long with you for the next 60 minutes of NASCAR regional and weekly racing talk. And a lot to talk about today. I believe, 4 touring divisions in action last weekend, plus a fairly significant shakeup in the NASCAR Whelen All-American Series national standings. Those standings just coming out moments ago.
Yeah, that, and we have a lot of tracks that are coming down to the last 2 or 3 races of their season, and we have got some very tight points battles that we're hoping we can share with everybody before we get off the air today. A lot of Whelen All-American short tracks have very, very tight battles. But as you mentioned, the Whelen All-American standings, it is on everybody's mind, and what a major shakeup that is.
Thomas Tillotson Jr.
I thought I'd let you say it.
Who we had on just a couple of weeks ago when he was, 5th or 6th at the time in the standings.
We just said let's give him some love. He's another guy that's done very well. Flint Creek Speedway, a new track on the series. So let's talk about him. Little did we know.
Little did we know that he would be challenging Keith Rocco and Ryan Preece and Lee Pulliam and Jimmy Zacharias for the national championship. Out of the top 5 or 6 weeks ago, he is the new national points leader with 2 wins this past weekend at both of the Oklahoma racetracks.
Yeah, actually, he's done very well. The car counts are good there at those 2 racetracks. We're talking about Salina. Or we go Salinas. Robbie, we forget every week, and I hate we're butchering that. I've actually asked Siri what it is. Siri doesn't know either.
And Siri knows just about everything.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, you mentioned Thomas Tillotson with those 2 victories. Ryan Preece had a very good weekend as well, scoring the victories at Thompson back on last Wednesday, and the victory at Riverhead Raceway. Keith Rocco is having good runs, but not having the success he had a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago, when he almost had a victory every weekend. I mean, he had a few top 5s this past weekend, but that's not what he needs at this juncture in the season.
Ted Christopher winning at the Waterford Speed Bowl in Connecticut. He finished 3rd, I believe, but the car counts are what his issues might be. Thompson didn't bring a full field last week. Stafford and Waterford both hovering right at around that 18 mark, which is what you need to get maximum points, but one less car, and it's problems for Keith.
You know what's equally impressive, and I know we pretty much talk about Division I the entire time. You and I delved into Division II or III last year at the banquet with one of our drivers. Can't bring up his name.
Sanders.
That's
from
right.
Bowman Gray, yep.
Yeah, and we because they go several divisions below that. It's just not Division I. But if you go to Division II, the Oklahoma tracks could have a clean sweep right now, and I noticed this just for the heck of it. Chris Hawkins currently 2nd to Kyle Purvis at Columbus Motor Speedway by just 38 points. So that what a statement that would be in the first year that Flint Creek is on the other Oklahoma track.
Salinas.
And they would both Division I and II would have drivers from Salinas and Flint Creek. That'd be pretty amazing.
That'd be huge for 2 tracks that we rarely talked about a year ago under the NASCAR Whelen All-American Series banner, and both right now running for championships with their drivers in the National Series, both in Division I and Division II. A lot to talk about today. Want to jump into the race at the Thompson Speedway last week because it was emotional, as we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast, for Doug Coby. A roller coaster night, leads a bunch of laps, pits, restarts 2nd, gets the jump on the restart, gets black flag for jumping the restart 3 laps later, and is able to charge back up to score the victory. You got to think momentum has been on the team side all year, but maybe even more so now in the run for this championship.
I mean, when we were talking to Ryan Preece a week ago after his latest victory at Stafford Motor Speedway, he and Woody Pitcat are right there tooth and nail. They trade the lead back and forth every race as far as the standings, but there's Doug Coby lying in the weeds waiting for yet another championship, which would be really the 2nd straight for Mike Smariglio and Doug Coby together.
8 points out of the lead right now is Doug Coby on Woody Pitcat, but I want to go back to last Wednesday night. One of the more emotional post-race press conferences I've heard in quite some time in any series. And Buddy and I are fortunate enough to be at the Camping World Truck and Xfinity and Sprint Cup Series races just about every weekend. But Doug fired up a little bit on an emotional night also because he won that event, his first Bud 150, since the passing of John Blewett III. In that race 8 years ago, he laid the checkered flag down in turn 1 where John's accident occurred. So all sorts of emotions. But I want to go back to the post-race on Wednesday night now, almost a week ago, and listen in to what Doug Coby had to say to the media.
These guys are running 20.2s, 3s, 4s before, or worse, before the caution, and you're going to spin the tires. You're not going to have grip. We've all got new tires, and I couldn't have given him the lead back because he was 8th in 1 lap. So I don't understand. They can't, usually when we're all racing and the second place guy gets a jump, the first place guy's within striking distance, so you just roll out of the gas. And it kind of seemed like it took them 3 or 4 laps to decide what they wanted to do, and I was clear by 5 at that point. And I don't know what I could have done, I don't really care at this point because we still won, but it's just so questionable. The driver's meeting says the restarts are in the area of the double red line. I was in the area of the double red line, and the 9, again, you guys saw, fell way back. Ted went by him, everybody went by him. It wasn't just me. So it's a shame for the fans that they get confused by that kind of stuff. There's no way to explain it. It's a judgment call, and you got people sitting in a tower making a judgment against a fresh tire leader who was a straightaway ahead of everybody, gets a jump on a rookie with 95 laps on his tires. No, I'm going to get a jump on him. I was going to be clear in turn 1. No matter if he had the restart of his life, I was going to be clear in turn 1. So that's why I think it looks bad for the series, because it's not like I came from nowhere and, maybe if somebody had done that to me, got a restart of their life and got me by 5 car lengths because I led the whole race. But I just don't know how to win with these guys. It seems like we're the judgment call every time. We're the first one to get penalized every time. At Stafford, the second race of the season, when I hit Keith Rocco and knocked him up the track and there was a wreck 3 or 4 cars behind us, that's the first time in probably 5 years that anybody's gotten penalized for causing a wreck behind them because they turned somebody sideways. I've been sideways in 5 out of 9 races this year. It's documented on camera, and because I didn't wreck, there's no penalty. So where the line is only drawn in this series when there's a wreck or when it seems like I do something for the first time. And I'm being outspoken right now, but I keep my mouth shut all the time, and it just seems like it's so inconsistent, and I have no understanding of what I could do,
The thoughts of Doug Coby post-race. I tweeted, I don't know how to say this. He's so clear in his thoughts.
Right.
He thinks them out. I'd love to see him when the driving career is done, hopefully a long time from now. I think he'd make a great NASCAR official.
And that's very well where he could be headed after it's all said and done, but hopefully he's going to be around for a long period of time. Sorry that it turned out the way it did. I mean, it kind of seems like it tarnishes an otherwise very emotional victory, as you mentioned, a very popular victory. He swept Thompson so far this year. He's only got 1 more left there this season. He's had himself a great year as a defending champion. The bullseye is on his back. He's the one everybody's after as the defending champion. And it's been a great battle between himself, Preece, Pitcat, Zegedy, and a few others. And you hate to see something like this kind of overshadow what otherwise was a very good weekend up there.
And it was one of those deals where, in baseball, the tie goes to the runner.
Right.
If it takes you 3 laps to figure out if you're gonna display the black flag, maybe the tie goes to Coby.
Right.
If it wasn't that obvious. So anyway, he came back, he won, and like Doug said, no harm, no foul, and it made for quite the show last Wednesday night at Thompson Speedway. A lot going on the show today. Dillon Bassett will join us here coming up in a moment. The winner of the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East race at Autodrome Speedway in Pennsylvania this past weekend. David Mayhew will join us, winner of the NASCAR K&N West Series. Ed Partridge, a car owner on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour for Ryan Preece.
Yeah.
And also just purchased the Riverhead Raceway on Long Island in New York. Bobby Pierce will join us as well as he made his debut on pavement at the Hickory Motor Speedway last Saturday night. Lots to talk about. When we come back, we'll get it started with Dillon Bassett.
NASCAR Coast to Coast will be right back on MRN.com.
Changing your oil regularly will help keep your vehicle running its best. Right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts, pick up 5 quarts of Quaker State conventional motor oil for $13.95 after a $3 mail-in rebate. Protect your engine with Quaker State at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limit supply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hi, this is NASCAR Live's Eli Gold. For over 30 years, you've been asking questions to your favorite drivers every Tuesday night. Well, you don't have to wait for Tuesday any longer. Call Motor Racing Network's brand new fan hotline at 844-4ASK-MRN to leave a question or comment for your favorites.
The NFL plays regular season games at Wembley in London. So what are your thoughts about how NASCAR could expand internationally?
Be a part of the voice of NASCAR. Call 844-4ASK-MRN.
This is NASCAR Can-Am Pro Series East driver Gray Gaulding, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to Kyle and Buddy.
All right, thank you very much, Gray. Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast here on the Motor Racing Network and MRN.com. The NASCAR Can-Am Pro Series was in action this past weekend at the Motordrome Speedway in Smithton, Pennsylvania, and the driver that came out on top, he was the 100th different winner in series history, was Dillon Bassett. He joins us now on the guest line. Dillon, welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast, and congratulations. Seemed like a great night for you and your race team out there when you were finally able to get the checkered flag on late Saturday.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Bring us through the night from your seat. Obviously, and we haven't talked about it yet, but a couple of red flags there late in the event to repair asphalt, I believe, on the front straightaway. Did that break your momentum at all? And what goes through your mind there running for the win late in the race and having to sit under not one but 2 red flags?
The race was really crazy, and we had just taken the lead right before the red flag came out with, I think it was like 50 to go or something, and sitting there under the red flags, the 2 red flags combined were like an hour and 45 minutes or something like that, and like the first 45 minutes or first hour, they made us sit there in our cars under the red flag, and it was just a lot going through my mind having to sit there. It's the first time I've ever led in the Can-Am series, and then having to sit there under red flag was just driving me crazy. Couldn't sleep in my race car because I was just so anxious to get the race back going, and just a lot of emotions going through there, a lot of nerves, and just so many things running through my head, wondering what was going to happen after the restart, wondering if the track was going to be ready when they set us to go back green. It's just a bunch of stuff, and it made for a wild night.
And the end of that wild night, as Kyle mentioned, the 100th different winner in Can-Am Pro Series East competition. Your first career victory, Rico Abreu, Austin Hill, who gave you a good run for the money towards the end, came home third. Scott Heckert and J.J. Haley, the top 5. It's been a tale of 2 years for you. I mean, we had you on the show a season ago, vying for the NASCAR Whelen All-American Series Championship, did very well, finished 4th in the standings last year. But a big difference, and I kind of compare it to over the weekend when we were at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, Kyle and Mike Bagley were talking about Ben Rhodes, one of the drivers obviously on the series last year, and what a vast difference it is from running so many K&N races, late model races, to running just a very limited schedule. And that's kind of you this year as well, going from 37 races that you had a year ago to just your 10th K&N race this year. Has it been a big adjustment for you to do that?
Yeah, it's been a really big adjustment. I'm used to sitting in the seat almost every week, and now to only 14 races this year is a big difference. Just not a lot of seat time in this K&N stuff. You show up to the racetrack, you get your 2 hours of practice, and then you qualify and race. So in the late model stuff, you could go, you could test, you get almost a full day of practice, and just a lot more seat time in the late model than you do in the K&N stuff. So really, when you show up to a K&N race, you better unload pretty close to what you're going to race, or you're going to be off the pace, and you're not going to have a really good chance to win. So if you don't unload close, you're going to struggle. And we've struggled a lot this year, and it's not really just been because we haven't had the race cars. It's just we've been through like 2 or 3 different crew chiefs already this year, which has really put us behind the 8 ball because when you're going against teams who've had crew chiefs there for more than like 5 years, they're experienced, so they know what you need to where you're going and switching crew chiefs every week. It makes it hard on a driver.
16-time late model winner just last year, 4th in the national standings a year ago in the Wheelin' All-American Series Division 1. You touched on it a moment ago. I was going to ask you about some of the challenges to this season in the NASCAR K&N Series. You mentioned the crew chief swaps off the racetrack. How about on the racetrack? What have some of the challenges been for you in adapting to these K&N East race cars?
I don't really feel like the actual car has been the biggest struggle for us this year. I just, like I said just a second ago, I think the biggest thing has been the crew chief. Communication is huge in this series, which is big in every other series, but the further you go up, the closer I feel like you need to be to your crew chief and the better relationship you have to have. And actually, Ron Otto has just started crew chiefing my car 2 races ago. Started at Iowa and at Motordrome, and I think that's really the biggest thing. You have to have communication because once you get on the racetrack, that's who you have to deal with during practice to get in. That's who you have to rely on to get your car better. And I think that's the thing that we just struggled with most, and that's really hurt our season. Is just not being able to communicate with the driver and crew chief, and I think that's why we struggled so much.
11th in the series points, though, even though you missed one race, which was the road course event a couple of weekends ago at Watkins Glen. 3 points out of top 10, which is still very attainable, obviously, with 3 races left to go. Getting back to the road course mention, I know you and Ronnie, your brother, did not run Watkins Glen that weekend. VIR next on the schedule. Will you guys be running that event, or will that be an event you also pass?
It's going to be another event that we pass. We just don't have quite enough guys in the shop to get our road course stuff ready. So we're sticking to the circle tracks for this year and trying to better our circle track program, and just so we don't have something even more go wrong on a road course, because it's easy to blow a motor or blow a transmission or something like that, and we don't have enough help to prepare all that stuff.
Have you looked ahead yet to 2016? I know it still seems like a long way away, but are you hoping to come back and maybe build upon what you have learned this year in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East in your rookie season and come back and maybe run the full year next year, including some of the road races?
We've definitely talked about some stuff for next year. Nothing's set in stone yet, but we're definitely going to run some K&N races. Whether it's the full schedule or not, we're not sure yet, but we're definitely going to try to stick to the K&N and try to win some more races in that series.
A couple of races left. We mentioned VIR, the events at Richmond International Raceway, and, of course, also in Dover, Delaware, 2 events we look to see you at. It's got to make you feel good, though. You wanted a racetrack that nobody's ever been at before. It may be comparable to a track you guys have run somewhere else, whether it be a Greenville Pickens or a New Smyrna, in the fact that it's Motordrome. But more importantly, and I think when Kyle and I were on the plane coming back from Mid-Ohio, we were checking on the qualifying results, and all you see are the multi-car teams that were higher up in the qualifying run. To be able to do this, and we alluded to Austin Hill, I should say, about this as well. Even though you have somewhat of a teammate in your brother Ronnie out there on the racetrack, these are independent teams that are going up against the bigger funded teams, I would say. It's got to make you guys feel so very good, and what a great shot in the arm to pick up the win at Motordrome and know that you have the ingredients to put that car in victory lane with that team.
Yeah, it's a big confidence booster to go out there and beat all the H. Scott cars and the Ben Kennedy team. You know, they've been in that series for a very long time, and they've had a lot of notes for that series and a lot of experienced people working for them. So it makes you feel really good to go out there and be able to compete with those guys, let alone beat those guys. And it really builds your confidence, because struggling so much in a series makes you doubt yourself at times, but going out there and winning a race against that caliber of competition just really makes you feel good and makes you feel like you can do it.
Yeah, a lot of big multi-car teams in this series with H. Scott, with Justin Marks, and Rev Racing with their 4 or 5 cars that they bring to the racetrack. And you mentioned Ben Kennedy Racing, well-financed down based in Daytona Beach. So a lot of powerhouse teams. How difficult was it for you and then your family operation to break into this series during the offseason? You know, what did you guys have to do to prepare to compete full-time at this level?
Everything that we do, my parents pay for. So my dad, he works Monday through Saturday, even on Sundays sometimes, just to be able to afford this. He wakes up at like 6 o'clock every morning and goes to work and doesn't get home until 10, 11 o'clock every night just so we can afford to do this. So really, if it wasn't for my mom and my dad, me and my brother would have no chance in doing any of this. So a big shout out to those two. Without them, none of this would be possible.
Has it been rewarding to have Ronnie on the series as somebody you could possibly lean on as a brother as well as a fellow competitor, I understand, but just to bounce ideas off of as far as, you know, if you haven't been feeling good, if you got an opinion from your crew chief, you get an opinion from your brother who's a driver out there as well. Has that been beneficial to you this year?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we talk about stuff all the time, about the race cars, about the racetrack strategy, you know. We try to help each other as much as we can. Obviously, we have 2 different driving styles, so it makes it a little different. But then again, it helps you at the same time because at the end result, we're both going for the same thing, and I feel like we both know what it takes. So we rely on each other quite a bit, but then again, we go our own way.
Always fun to see a new winner in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East, or in any of the touring divisions for that matter. And Dillon, want to congratulate you again on the race win on Saturday night. Delayed a little bit, I know, on the back straightaway. You guys were hanging out. I saw some of the drivers periscoping and tweeting and all sorts of fun stuff there on the back straightaway. Sounds like you made the most of it, though, and was able to get the victory lane at the checkered flag.
Yes, sir. It was very emotional, but probably the greatest feeling I've had behind the wheel of a race car yet.
All right, Dillon Bassett joining us, the driver of the Bassett Guitars Ford, brought the victory lane on Saturday night. Always good to see a new winner, and especially, like you mentioned, one of these smaller family-owned operations being able to outrun some of these big powerhouse teams that, and I know they don't have a bottomless budget, but when you look at an H. Scott Motorsports and show up with these massive haulers and you know 4 or 5 cars, and then you look at the second half and the Bassett show up in this much smaller hauler than most everybody else in that series.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done a fantastic job. We've been following them through the Wheelin' All-American Series and other touring series that they've run. We talked to Ronnie, 2 or 3 years ago when he won another touring series race at Rockingham Speedway, or did very well there actually. So these kids have really earned it. Their dad works very hard for them. They appreciate it. And it's good to see another smaller team to get back into victory lane. Don't forget the race will air on Thursday, August 20th this week at 7 p.m. in BCSN. So where am I going to be? I'm going to be back home. We're going to be done with the Bristol truck race.
We'll be at Bristol tomorrow.
Might have a chance to watch it.
For the truck race, there's another division running at Bristol tomorrow.
I don't know who they are. I'm not interested.
Oh, wow. Modifieds, of course. Both the Southern and Northern series will be there. They run at 6:15 tomorrow night. I've already told our producer, Brian Nelson, our production meeting at 6 o'clock. Got to be
Absolutely.
Got to be snappy.
Absolutely.
Got to be snappy because we got the modifieds to watch. All right, when we come back, we're going to go to the West Coast, talk to the winner of the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West race, the Napa Auto Parts 150 at Evergreen Speedway. David Mayhew joins us in a moment.
Coming back with more of NASCAR Coast to Coast, it's Kyle Rickey and Buddy Long right after this.
Dale Jr. here. I wear Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans for any occasion. With new styles and great fits, you'll look good and feel comfortable anytime, anywhere.
Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans are built with a U-shaped construction, so they give you more room where you need it. And their 4-way flex technology moves with you for all-day comfort.
In the garage or out and about, Wrangler knows the ins and outs of comfort. Wrangler, real comfortable jeans.
The road to victory lane isn't just for drivers anymore. Introducing the official daily fantasy game of NASCAR at DraftKings.com, America's favorite daily fantasy sports site. Just pick a team of 5 drivers and stay under the salary cap. Outscore your opponents and win. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use promo code COAST to play for free. You could win part of the $1 billion in prizes being awarded this year. Enter COAST to play for free now at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
This is NASCAR Wheeling Southern Modified driver Jason Myers, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to Kyle and Buddy.
Jason, one of those drivers in a very tight point battle at a NASCAR Wheeling All-American Series track, and they're down to what, one night? Championship
double point night
Saturday.
tonight. Yep.
Not tonight.
I mean, not tonight. Yeah, we're going to go tonight. Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Before we go to Bristol.
But this Saturday, Bowman Gray Stadium, championship night. Hopefully the weather cooperates and they can Tim Brown's the point leader now.
He is by 14 over Burt.
And
I think we learned it last year from either Greg Garrison or Burt Myers or somebody. If they get rained out tonight, I keep saying tonight, Saturday,
yeah,
they would use their rain date next weekend.
Okay.
It's only for the last event if the last event gets rained out. So keep that in mind just in case we have a few raindrops
hopefully
on Saturday.
They don't have to worry about that. They're 1,001 NASCAR sanctioned event, which is an incredible feat for any facility. Let's talk about the Evergreen Speedway now. The Napa Auto Parts 150 took place this past weekend for the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West. David Mayhew went to victory lane when all was said and done. And David, it seemed like a pretty dominant night for you and your team, leading 115 of the race's 150 laps. Congratulations on the win.
Thanks for having me on. And yes, we had a pretty awesome car this last weekend. It's not too often you get cars like that, and you got to cherish the moment when you do.
And it sounded like it was a little bit of work that you guys had to do to get the car to that point. As the tail end of practice came to a conclusion, you guys still had some wholesale changes. It sounded like you needed to make to the car to get it to where it ended up being.
Yeah, we actually broke some parts right on the last lap of practice coming into, basically on the cool-down lap. And it wasn't something that was real obvious. So the guys did a heck of a job finding the problem and just felt a little bit of vibration. And they found the problem and fixed it right before qualifying. So it could have been one of those days where another day where you had an awesome car and something could have went wrong right there at the beginning of the race. And thankfully we caught what was wrong and were able to complete the race.
That make it a little more tense for you during qualifying later that afternoon after you guys discovered and fixed the problem?
Not really. We set the car up a little bit looser during the day, so we knew qualifying wasn't going to be our best point. And when we were only a couple hundreds off the pole, we knew we had a really good shot when it started to cool down for the nighttime. So it all worked out pretty well.
10th career victory for you, the second of the season, and it really comes at a great time for you. A couple of weeks ago, the combo race of the Iowa Speedway, an accident relegated you to dead last on the field, and I know you just had to be absolutely chomping at the bit to get back to the West Coast, get behind the wheel of a car, and get yourself back in a competitive position, and boy, did you ever do it.
Yeah, we've had a rough couple weeks since Sonoma, actually. The last couple races after that weren't the greatest, and blew a right front tire early in the Iowa combo race with what we had on was a really good car, and so that was a heartbreaker. We went there with a new car, and to have it end that early, so we were really looking to bounce back, and no better way than lead the most laps and win the race. So can't thank all the guys for all the hard work and sticking with us through the bad times to get to the good.
Maximum point night, no doubt for you the other night. Now just 16 points out of the lead. Fifth in the standings, though, have 4 drivers in front of you. You'll have to kind of hurdle over to try to get this championship. Do you feel it's obtainable now with 4 races to run?
Yeah, it seems like every couple races we have some bad stuff happen, and we're like, oh, the points are over, and we're out of the thing. We're over 25 points out, and we'll have a race like this where we get max points and really good points nice. So we just need to really limit our problems, and we've got the speed, it seems like, week in and week out, but we've got to limit any problems that we may have and hope for a little bit of good luck on our side. And I think it's definitely attainable. It's going to be tough, but it's something that's definitely a possibility. Phoenix being the last race of the year is really a big wild card because I'm sure we'll get a bunch of East guys and it'll be a real big field. So it's probably not over till the checkered flag flies in Phoenix for anybody. In the top 5 or 6, it's all real close.
Colorado National Speedway being the next venue you guys will go to, which will be this weekend, the Napa Toyota 150. Coming up on Saturday, nestled in between that and Phoenix, as you mentioned, were events at Meridian Speedway in Idaho, another track that's new to the K&N Pro Series West schedule this year, and the All-American Speedway out in Roseville, California. Skipping over Colorado for a moment, I know you don't like to look too far ahead, but looking at Meridian, another track that's new to the series this year for you guys, any track that compares to that you guys can have some good notes on to go off of when you get there?
I've never been there, but I've heard some people commenting that it's similar to Bowman Gray. So
wow.
If it's that small and tight, I mean, there's not much you can prepare for except for beef the bumpers up and hope to have a fast car and stay out front, because if it's that small, you'll be in traffic. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And honestly, our 3 of the last 4 races are all short tracks. So there's a lot can go wrong on the short tracks. You just got to keep your nose clean and drive smart. And hopefully we can keep that attitude throughout the races and not get caught up in anything. So that's our goal for the next 3 races, is finish without having any problems, and I think things will be okay.
I've asked some of the rookies this next question. I want to ask you, as a veteran, going to a new track for the first time, as this series has done a couple of times this season already. What's that first practice session like for you? Is there like a checklist of things that goes through your mind and your crew's mind when you hit this racetrack for the very first time?
Yeah, a lot of things. You're just looking for nuances in the track. You try to watch the local late models or some YouTube videos or something to get you a little bit of an idea where the line is. But typically the West cars, they're a lot heavier than anything local, so the line's usually a little bit different. But you're trying to compare it to different tracks where you can compare some setup notes that you have at some other places that might apply there, because everybody be on a fresh page. So trying to compare and get yourself closer by some of the stuff you've done in the past is probably the biggest thing right off the bat, and just watching as much video and stuff as you can, so you're as well prepared when you do get there as you can be.
Ryan Partridge coming home second over the weekend at Evergreen with Chris Eggleston, Grayson Raz, and Noah Gregson the top 5, or Gregson, excuse me. Gregson and Eggleston now tied for the series lead. Kyle mentioned you're just 16 out back in the number 5 position. And very good shot to win this championship still with 4 very solid races left to go. But let's get back to Evergreen, the event in which you won a year ago, joining the likes of Ron Eaton, Brendan Gaughan, Chad Little, some of the drivers that have gone through the West, to name a few, that have had back-to-back successes. What has it been about Evergreen that just works so well for you and your team?
I'm not real sure. It's a bigger track, which I think suits my style a little bit better. It's real wore out, so you have a lot of drop off in the tires, and it's real bumpy tracks. You've got a lot of different line choices that you can pick to get around the bumps, get through the bumps, or get over the bumps the best you can. And not really sure why we've adapted. Last year we definitely didn't have the fastest car, but got lucky there on a late restart and had a good move on the last corner of the last lap. And this year was a lot less stressful, and knowing we had the best car there, it made life a lot easier. Biggest thing we were hoping for was the thing to go green throughout that second half, and luckily, we went 75 laps green. It was good, clean racing on everybody's part. And they're thinking, do I take the high side, do I take the low side if we do have a caution? That was my biggest concern there. The last 75 laps is the bottom seemed, I was running the top, but the bottom, you never want to give up the bottom on a track where everybody's slipping and sliding around. There's just leaves yourself to a lot that can happen. But luckily it stayed green and we didn't have to worry about that. But that definitely added to the stress level throughout the second half there.
Good, clean racing with a lot of inexperience, for the most part, on the racetrack. And this is something that Buddy and I talk about a lot on this show with this series, is the young talent in the NASCAR K&N Pro Series West right now. You have to be excited about the future of this series and even the current championship race with Chris Eggleston, Noah Gregson, Ryan Partridge, Grayson Raz, all rookies. And then you throw in Johnny White and Nicole Bihar, who's had a great season. you have to be impressed to see what some of these kids can do on the racetrack in, for the most part, their first full season behind the wheel of a NASCAR stock car.
Yeah, no doubt. The talent out here on the West Coast this year is going into the year. We weren't sure quite how it was all going to work out. There's a bunch of new names, and we had raced with them a few races here and there, but as the season's gone on, they've proven just how tough it's going to be. They've got some really good veteran crew chiefs on most of those teams, and guys that have all won races and championships leading them and teaching them, and they're all great drivers. I mean, they're all doing really well. They drive clean. They'll race you hard, but it's not like some of the stuff. I think out here you get a little more respect between the drivers as opposed to some of the East races where you see a lot of dive bombs and a little bit more reckless, I'd say, as far as how they race. And the 4, 5, 6 guys out here that are racing are really, really clean, and it's been really fun to race with them all. And you wouldn't think you were out there racing 5 or 6 rookies with how the season's gone. You'd think everybody was seasoned veterans, and that's just not the case. These are their first year, and you got to remember that sometimes.
And as a result, I mean, the two major storylines were the rookies, as Kyle alluded to, and there's so many talented drivers out there, as well as the veteran drivers and yourself and Brandon McReynolds and several others. But between that and the many different venues that you guys have been on this year that you haven't had, some have been tracks that have been in the past, but some new venues for you. And adding to that, the perfect timing for NBC Sports Network to be a part of this program, to see such a great battle with so many young drivers and the veteran drivers, a lot of new faces, a lot of new racetracks out there. It's been pretty good to have the NBCSN coverage out there as well, I can imagine.
Yeah, the coverage has been great this year, and to have them at all the races, they do an awesome job on the coverage, and can't thank them enough for being out there and showing what our series has to offer. And without them, half the people wouldn't get to see what was going on. So it's always important for us to have the coverage like that.
Talk about a lot of these young drivers moving up through the ranks. You've run some select NASCAR Camping World Truck Series races over the years. I remember seeing you a lot, especially at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway and such when we went out to the West Coast. Any opportunities down the line for yourself to move up back into one of NASCAR's national series?
Nothing lately. You just kind of wait for the phone call. A lot of it's about sponsorship these days, so it makes it pretty tough when you don't have the support to keep going up with a good big sponsor. The sponsor I have for the West Series, he's been awesome and got me more than I could ever ask for as far as being able to drive. And I mean, I'm happy right now running the West Series. If something did come up, obviously I'd like to go do it, but being able to be in the position I'm in for as long as I have been, I'm super thankful for that, and can't complain by any means.
Yeah, and you got those sponsors, the Victory Lane this past Saturday night at the Evergreen Speedway, the Napa Auto Parts 150. David, again, thanks for taking the time to join us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, and best of luck to you the rest of the season. We'll be watching your progress here at these final 4 races and see if you can challenge for this K&N West Series championship.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, David Mayhew right now, 5th in the series standing, 16 points behind a couple of those young guns in the field. Chris Eggleston, Noah Gregson are tied right now atop the series standings. Ryan Partridge just 6 points back. David Mayhew, Grayson Raz, that is 8 points back, and then David 16. It's tight.
It is. I mean, and nobody's giving. This is something that looks like it's coming right down to the wire. I know we got 4 races left. And there's a lot that can happen between now and Phoenix, but it just doesn't look like they're going to break away from one another. They're staying glued to each other.
It's tight in the modifieds, the modified tour as well. And I don't know if we mentioned the points earlier. We talked about the results with Doug Coby, but just as tight of a battle for that series with, I believe, 4 races to go with Bristol tomorrow night. And you got fall final, not Waterford.
Well, you got Riverhead,
Thompson,
Bristol, New Hampshire,
so
Stafford, and Thompson.
5 to go, 10 in the books, and 8 points between the top 3 right now.
That was written up on that wall, by the way. I couldn't remember that from memory.
Woody Pitkat, the series championship leader by mere 1 point over Ryan Preece. Doug Coby, 8th in the standings. It seems like it's going to come down to those 3. none of them seem to bobble at all.
No,
I mean,
they don't.
They've just been solid all year.
The only bobble you have is they just trade the top 2 spots every week. But they're within 1, 2, or 3 points, and right now it's 1. It's just amazing what these guys are doing and how consistent they've been.
And a car owner in the middle of it all, literally, second in points right now with Ryan Preece is Ed Partridge, and he has a lot to talk about, not only on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, but a recent purchase on Long Island. We'll talk to him about that after the break.
NASCAR Coast to Coast will be right back on MRN.com.
Don't miss your chance to enter the O'Reilly Auto Parts $10,000 payment payoff sweepstakes powered by Castrol Edge. You could win a grand prize of $10,000 toward paying off your vehicle. But hurry, sweepstakes ends August 25th. Visit O'ReillySweeps.com for full details. No purchase necessary. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Dale Jr. here. I wear Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans for any occasion. With new styles and great fits, you'll look good and feel comfortable anytime, anywhere.
Wrangler Advanced Comfort jeans are built with a U-shaped construction, so they give you more room where you need it. And their 4-way flex technology moves with you for all-day comfort.
In the garage or out and about, Wrangler knows the ins and outs of comfort. Wrangler, real comfortable jeans.
This is NASCAR Can-Am Pro Series East driver Jay Beasley, and you're listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast on MRN.com. Now back to you, Kyle and Buddy.
And we wish Jay the best. Was out this past weekend, apparently under the weather, unable to compete on Saturday night. I know it caught our attention.
Yeah, it was funny. We were sitting there looking, where's Beasley's name at in this
Exactly.
rundown? And we finally saw the 42, and it was one of his fellow Rev Racing drivers that runs a limited schedule this year.
Yeah, and I believe, Devin was in that car?
Oh, Sergio Pena.
Sergio
I think he
Pena.
got 10th over the weekend as well.
Got a top 10 run over the weekend in the NASCAR Can-Am Pro Series East, but we hope Jay can get back with us here when we get back on track in a couple of weeks for the Can-Am East teams. All right, let's talk about a car owner that has his hands now in all sorts of different parts of motorsports. Ed Partridge joins us now, and Ed, I don't know where to start with this interview. We have a lot to talk about. First off, the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour stuff. A great season for you and your team. First year out of the blocks, that is, with Ryan Preece.
Yeah, we've been pretty good when we went to New Smyrna. The car was fast, and we just continue to keep the rhythm up. As far as it's a tight race. The 2 cars on the money all the time. He's had a couple of bad races, and the 88 is right there. With Kit Kat. And Zegedy, he's creeping into the picture.
One of the most talented seasons that we have seen by far. I think we saw that coming. I think you probably did too when you saw the chess match in the offseason of so many drivers switching rides, and Ryan was one of the first to make that trek over to the number 6 car this year. But everything that fell into line after that with driver switches, you just had to look at the beginning of a season and say, wow, this is going to be one of the most competitive and best seasons ever, and it looks like it's shaped up to be that way.
Yeah, and the car count's up. We seems like we're getting 30, 35 cars a show, and that's good because, we put on some good racing the other night at Thompson. It was a great race. It's good to see the car count up.
Yeah, I mean, just think 2-3 years ago we were talking about car counts 22, 24, and now they've added a dozen to that on a regular basis. So the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, extremely healthy. And one of the facilities that the Modified Tour runs every year, sometimes twice, Riverhead Raceway on Long Island in New York, a track that Buddy and I talk about every week here on NASCAR Coast to Coast because it's one of our favorite short tracks, and now it's a short track that you own. Congratulations on the recent purchase. Why Riverhead and why now, Ed?
Well, Jim and Barbara I think that they told me this was definitely their last year. And they were looking for a buyer, or it was going to actually close down and wait for, some kind of developer or something would come along. So we've been talking for a year or two about this, and I was waiting to sell a piece of property and that was coming along real slow. So all of a sudden, it just all came together, and I just actually transferred, whatever money I got there right into that piece of property. So now, we're going to run it. My wife and my nephew, Tommy Gatz, and John Elwood, who has been managing the track for the last, 4 or 5 years. We're going to put together a team and go at it next year.
And for the second time this year, and our season started off with another New England facility that basically was saved, and the person that purchased the New London Waterford Speedboat kept it as a racetrack. And that has got to be some just fantastic news for fans up in New England for the second time this year, because it seemed like over the course of many years, ever since the Cromartie family has been looking to sell it, they wanted to sell it to somebody that wanted to keep it as a racing facility.
Right. That's our goal. Our long-term goal is to see if we can, a developer would come along, a big one, and we could make enough money off this piece to move into the Calverton, the old Air Force site in Calverton. It's just like, 1,200 acres there. And there's 50 acres that were deeded for a racetrack. Now, as I just got a call a couple of minutes ago, they're looking to talk to me about that. But we need to, first of all, run this track, get it going, and see what comes about, as far as the developer. We have to build the other one first before if we were ever to close Riverhead, because you don't want to get in the political arena of not having anything.
Right. Absolutely. Barbara and Jim Cromartie, they've been promoting that place, Riverhead, since the mid-1980s. The track opened for business in 1951 as a dirt track, paved in 1955, and they've run modifieds there as their premier division every year except for 3 since 1952. And I know, Ed, you've been attending races as a fan and as a car owner and a crew member for a number of years. How much do you remember your first night that you ever went to the Riverhead Raceway, perhaps as a kid?
Well, that was my first place. I went to ICE. They used to have this big demolition derby. It was on Wide World Sports, but the first race I ever attended was at Riverhead Raceway in the 60s, and a fellow used to take us there. Me and my friend from Wading River, we used to go there every Saturday night. And then eventually I joined up with the Chargers Unbeck team.
Well, and of course, it's good news for people on Long Island, because this takes me back to the tail end of the Stanley Cup playoffs when the Caps were playing the New York Islanders, and everybody knew that the end was coming for Nassau Coliseum, which was the home of the Islanders on Long Island, and that they were going to be moving to Brooklyn to play in the same arena that the Brooklyn Nets play in. So it was sad times, but I immediately thought about Riverhead. It's like, God, I hope that place doesn't go away, because I knew the Cromarties were looking to sell, and whether they would be successful enough to find a buyer that was going to keep it as a racetrack was key. Everybody, myself, Kyle, always dream of, well, if I had this racetrack, this is the first thing I would do. Have you really sat and thought about some things? I mean, say it stays at Riverhead for a while. What would you change immediately, or what would you like to change? All respect to the Cromartie family. What would you like to change?
Well, we're already getting prices on fixing all the lighting. It's just hasn't been kept up with over the years. So we're going to put all new bathrooms in, new kitchens. We're really going to go at trying to get the family back, the kids, with clowns and clown cars and clowns chasing each other around.
See, he's got a place for you and me, Kyle.
Yeah. So, we're really going to try to make it family, friendly.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to get up there, hopefully for a NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour race next year. Obviously, a great weekly program as well. Do you anticipate any changes to the schedule, anything that you would like to add that you've seen at other facilities outside of the clowns and any race events that you're looking at?
Well, probably going to talk to the Tri-Track guys a little bit. Maybe the Valenti series, see what's going on there. I know there's been some talk in the paper, things aren't going well there for whatever reason, but I'd like to get a third tour show there if possible. I I asked for that last year and couldn't get it. So I don't know why, but we're going to try and get a third modified tour show there.
That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
NASCAR
Absolutely.
Modifieds always put on a great show at these bull ring type short tracks, the speed bowls, the Monadnocks, and obviously Riverhead Raceway would, I think, benefit in having 3 events, hopefully, next year. So,
right.
Ed, congratulations again on all the success, both on the modified tour as a car owner with everything that's going on with Ryan Preece and running for that championship, and obviously a busy week for you in announcing the purchase of Riverhead Raceway, one of America's great short tracks, this past weekend.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Eddie Partridge, going to have big shoes to fill, no doubt, but I think if anybody can fill them, it's him. And talking with the Cromarties earlier, they had 14 offers for that property, but all of them wanted to redevelop the property and not keep it as a racetrack. So we thank Ed for stepping in and
absolutely
doing what he did. Let's jump right in now to another driver transitioning from, dirt to asphalt. We've talked about him on dirt a lot here on the Motor Racing Network the last couple of months, ever since the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race at the Eldora Speedway when Bobby Pierce came home in the second spot, challenged for the win most of the night. Bobby joins us now here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, making the transition to asphalt, going to the Hickory Motor Speedway this past Saturday night. A good top 5 effort for you guys, finishing in 3rd. Welcome to NASCAR Coast to Coast, and I guess the big question is, do we expect to see you more on asphalt here in the coming years?
That's a good question. I hope so. We'll just got to see what happens here. One thing big about this deal is sponsorship. So if we can just keep finding some sponsors, and you never know. We everything has been going really good so far. Hickory went great. Heck, that's probably one of the best asphalt cars I've drove, so it feels really good, to get a good car under you. Heck, that's really important on asphalt. So I don't know. We just got to see, keep digging, and every single race is good for experience. And every time I race an asphalt car, it's just completely different than dirt. Heck, you got to throw out so many bad habits out the window, when you go from dirt to asphalt, and then even asphalt to dirt. So I don't know. We just got to see.
Well, and there's no doubt it's been a very good year for you already on the dirt with the truck race. The great storyline, not just you as a dirt racer that went in there and ran Eldora, but to do it in Mike Mittler's truck was so cool, because obviously that's one of the long-standing team owners, if not the longest, on the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. And to be able to accomplish that was just simply phenomenal. We saw your dad there in Victory Lane with you as well, or not Victory Lane, but actually where you were being interviewed for your second-place run. Had to be an electric night.
Yeah, it was. The truck race is so fun, and anytime you race, no matter what class it is at Eldora, it's going to be really fun. Eldora is just one of those tracks that provides great racing, and the atmosphere there is just amazing, too, at the same time. So, I hope that NASCAR can add some more dirt tracks to their schedules. That'd be really cool to see. But Mike Mittler is a great guy to work with, and he was just, the smile on his face was so big after we got the pole for him, and it was really cool to see that. And Eldora was fun, a lot of TV coverage, which was the main thing. We were going to do whatever it took to race that race, and luckily everything paid off, and we had a really good run, and Christopher Bell did a great job on the win. And it was also really cool to see a lot of dirt guys up front, and dirt experience goes a long way in that race. As you could tell, there's a lot of asphalt guys that were struggling. So
yeah, made the best of it, no doubt, with a second place effort on a couple of weeks ago at the Eldora Speedway in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. You mentioned a little bit ago in talking about Hickory that it was one of the better asphalt cars that you have driven. How much asphalt experience do you have? Because every time we talk about you, it's usually about dirt racing.
Yeah, definitely. That was about my 4th race on asphalt. I raced, back when I was 16, it was my first asphalt race at Memphis. I was in a crate. And then I raced New Smyrna, and I raced at Slinger Speedway, and then Hickory. So, I've heard a lot about Hickory even before I knew I was going to race there. I guess kind of one of those tracks, that has a lot of history. I don't know how many drivers that have raced there before that were coming up through the ranks, making name for themselves. So it was really cool to race there and, drive that Speedco car for LW and Junior Motorsports and all them. And just got to thank all those guys for the opportunity. It's really cool.
Now, I got to be a little selfish here because I'm a huge dirt late model racing fan. I came from the dirt wars, local racetracks back in Maryland, up around Hagerstown and Winchester and Potomac Speedways, and that's where the World of Outlaws were at over the weekend. You scored a huge victory this year in the UMP Summer Nationals, and that is not easy when you look back and think it's they've called it the Hell Tour over the years. All the nights that you guys raced consecutively and all the many races. I know you had a lot of rainouts this year, but the dirt side of me was very happy to see you win that championship this year.
Well, thank you. It was definitely something that's been on my list. Heck, 2 years ago we tried to do it, and we came up short by 10 points. So to get the championship, it was awesome. And the L Tour is just really one of those things I've always kind of looked up to ever since I was a little kid and first heard about it. I just idolized everyone that could do the whole thing, and it's tough for sure. It's got a nickname as the Hell Tour for a reason, I guess. And most of the time it's about 30 races in about 27 days. So you're racing day after day after day, and even considering the rainouts, it was still a Hell Tour because, every single day you're up and down the road, and it takes a toll on you and your equipment. And I don't know, it was kind of cool. Everything seemed like it paid off at the end, so it was well worth it.
And we thought the Sprint Cup schedule was busy. Bobby, again, thanks for taking some time to join us here today. Congratulations on a good run, both at Eldora on dirt and Hickory on asphalt over the last couple of weeks. And sounds like, anyway, we'll be talking to you a lot here, hopefully, in the coming months.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, Bobby Pierce joining us. Always good to see a fresh face to us.
I don't like
side.
it. I want him on the dirt.
You want him on the dirt? Okay. Well, again,
I'm selfish. I'm sorry.
He's a familiar face to you.
For him to be able to do what he did, I mean, I know it was dirt, but still in the Camping World truck against some of the best in the business, and then to pull off a second place run at Hickory with some very good competition there. Josh Berry's no slouch. Matt Piercy, Landon Huffman, some of the other guys that have been out there. So that was very impressive.
Yeah, great field of cars at Hickory, a strong field anyway at the Hickory Motor Speedway, and Bobby Pierce got in there, jumped in, and raced with the best of them. A lot of racing across the country. About 2 minutes left in the show. Want to run down some results. All three of the Connecticut tracks were in action. Ronnie Williams picking up win number 5 in the SK Modifieds at Stafford Speedway. National championship contender Ryan Preece finished in second. Ted Christopher won at Waterford. Keith Rocco finished 4th, a national contender, and Ryan Preece won at Thompson Speedway, while Woody Pitcat was 2nd, and Keith Rocco was 3rd. So a busy week of racing in Connecticut.
Absolutely. Todd Gilliland, he has made the news again. He's the youngest winner in ARCA competition at the age of 15. Well, he did it again at Greenville Pickens Speedway in late model competition, beating David Roberts and Jeremy Burns. 2 events left at Greenville Pickens. David Roberts right now leads Trey Gibson by 58 points.
Rockford Speedway, they were back in action over the weekend. Michael Bilderback back in victory lane in the late model. They're back in action this Saturday for Instant Jungle Night, which includes a plywood race.
Danny Sullivan is a rookie, picks up his second win at Airborne Park Speedway. They've got 4 events left, and Jimmy Zacharias picking up another win at Chemung Speedrome.
And we mentioned Ryan Preece earlier, Riverhead Raceway. He was back in victory lane over the weekend. 15 cars took the green flag there, so was unable to get maximum points, but is still, I guess he's losing a little bit of ground in the national championship race, some 40 points back.
Tomorrow night, Whelen Modified and Whelen Southern Modified Boys at Bristol Motor Speedway. The Bush's Beans 150. You got to support the sponsor, Kyle. You got to have some beans tomorrow night on the trailer.
I'm okay with that.
I think it's going to be it. Who's going to be your pick?
Oh, boy. I knew you were going to ask that. It's hard to ignore Doug Kobe right now.
It is. You got to put Our Motorsports in there because they've had good notes the last couple of years. But I think Woody and Ryan are going to be right back up there again.
Going to be a fun race. We'll talk about it next week here. Look forward to it. That's, I guess, the one race of the year we go up to the booth and turn position like 2 hours early.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
I want to thank Dillon Bassett, David Mayhew, Ed Partridge, and Bobby Pierce for joining us on the show today. For Robbie Mays and Craig Moore, along with Buddy Long, I'm Kyle Rickey. We'll see you back here next Tuesday on NASCAR Coast to Coast.
You've been listening to NASCAR Coast to Coast. Tune in next Wednesday at 1 Eastern for more talk from local tracks all over America. NASCAR Coast to Coast is also available on demand in the MRN.com Media Center or download from iTunes or Stitcher. NASCAR Coast to Coast is a production of the Motor Racing Network. All rights reserved.